Picture this. It's the last lesson before lunch. There's a student at the back of your room who hasn't written a single word. They've knocked their pencil off the desk twice, called out 4 times, and they are currently tapping a rhythm on the table with a ruler. You ask them to stop twice. The class is watching. What do you do? And more importantly, what's actually going on for that student? Welcome to Excell Connect. Today, we're going deep on ADHD, what it actually is, how it shows up in your classroom, and most importantly, what you can do to genuinely help. Not quick fixes, not band-aids, real, practical strategies that will make a difference. Not just for your ADHD students, but for your whole class. Let's dive in. What is ADHD really? First, let's clear something up because the name is genuinely misleading. ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. But here's the thing, students with ADHD don't have a deficit of attention. What they have is greater difficulty regulating attention, impulses, and energy. There's a huge difference between those two things. Think about it this way. A student with ADHD can sit and play a video game for 4 hours without moving. They are not incapable of attention. What they struggle with is directing that attention, choosing where to focus, staying on something that doesn't naturally engage them, and switching between tasks without falling apart. Scientifically, we know there is a neurological difference in the brains of people with ADHD. The brain processes demands differently, and this affects a specific set of executive functions. The skills that help us plan, prioritize, start tasks, manage time, and regulate emotions. And here is the really important bit. You are either born with ADHD or you are not. You do not develop it over time. What happens is that some people are very good at masking it. They find ways to cope, to manage, to compensate, and some people aren't diagnosed until adulthood, often because their world has become so overwhelming that their usual coping strategies have stopped working. This means when a student with ADHD struggles, it is never, and I want to stress this, it is never because they don't care, or they're lazy, or their parents haven't raised them properly. It's because their brain genuinely processes demands differently. Does knowing that ADHD is about regulation, not attention, change how you see any students you've taught? Here's some of the myths that we need to let go of. Let's talk about the labels that follow these students around. Bad parenting, laziness, a lack of intelligence, just a behaviour problem, something they'll grow out of. These labels are not just wrong, they are damaging. Now, many students with ADHD are bright, creative, and highly capable people, but they underperform, not because they can't do the work, but because they struggle to plan, manage their time, and get started on tasks. Think about what that feels like. Imagine you genuinely want to write an essay, but every time you try to begin, your brain simply won't let you. You can see what needs doing, but you cannot make yourself start. And then someone looks at you and says, "You're just not trying hard enough." That is the daily reality for many ADHD students. Now, by the time they reach your lesson at the end of the day, they may have already experienced that message 5 or 6 times. So is it any wonder that they arrive appearing disinterested, disillusioned, or disengaged? Every single interaction throughout that day has reinforced a sense of failure. If we treat ADHD as a motivation problem instead of a regulation problem, we end up punishing students for something they simply cannot fix, no matter how hard they try. How ADHD presents in your classroom. Now, this is where it gets interesting because ADHD does not look the same in every student. So some students are externally hyperactive, you know these ones. They can't stay in their seat, they're calling out, they're constantly in motion. They get noticed quickly because they are difficult to miss. But some students are internally hyperactive, and these are the ones who often fall through the cracks entirely. These students look like they're daydreaming. They are slow to start tasks. They might appear spaced out, almost absent. They're not causing disruption, so we don't always spot what's happening until they are significantly behind. Whether your student presents externally or internally, you may notice some consistent patterns across the board. Incomplete work. Despite clearly understanding the material, they got the lesson, they just couldn't produce the output. Strong verbal skills but very weak written output, and emotional overreactions to small problems because their capacity for self-regulation is already stretched thin. So difficulty transitioning between activities, maybe. The bell goes and they freeze, unable to let go of what they were doing or unable to start the next thing. Forgetting instructions moments after hearing them, not because they weren't listening, but because working memory is one of the core areas affected by ADHD. These are not behaviour choices. These are the direct result of a regulation difficulty. And the moment we see them that way, everything changes. So, what is harder to spot in your experience, the hyperactive student or the quietly disengaged one? We'd love to hear your thoughts. The emotional cost. Here's what I really want you to sit with for a moment. A student with ADHD spends a significant part of their day receiving negative feedback. Think about how you feel when you have 2 or 3 difficult interactions in a single working day. How that drains you, how it quietly affects your confidence. Now imagine that is your everyday from the moment you walk into school. Hearing you're not trying hard enough, often enough, means that eventually students stop trying. Their mental health takes a hit. They begin to develop low self-esteem, anxiety, avoidance of work, and a deep fear of failure. And here is something really important to understand. For some students, acting out actually becomes a form of self-protection. If I behave badly enough to get removed from this lesson, I don't have to sit here and face another failure. I've chosen my exit. That student who looks like a behaviour problem, they might just be trying to protect themselves from feeling incapable one more time. One of the most powerful things you can do as a teacher is to separate the behaviour from the identity. Look at the student, not the behaviour. See the person in front of you, not the problem. You are capable, you just need the right support. That is the message every ADHD student needs to hear, and you are in a position to give it to them. Have you ever had a situation where behaviour turned out to be about something much deeper than you first realised? Let us know your story in the comments, we'd love to hear it. Okay, let's get practical. These are 5 key strategies you can implement immediately. You don't need to redesign your entire classroom. Small, consistent adjustments can make a huge difference. Tip 1. Clarity over repetition. Instead of repeating instructions in the same way, simplify and chunk them from the very start. Give 1 or 2 steps at a time. Never assume students can hold a full sequence in working memory. Write instructions visibly on the board in steps. Use now and next so students always know what they're moving towards. Make the next action visible. Not all students will be able to remember everything they're told, and that's okay. Give them somewhere to look instead. Tip number 2. Clear and consistent routines. Students with ADHD regulate significantly better when they know what to expect. Be explicit about how your lesson begins. Are students coming into a starter on the board? Do they line up first? Be equally clear about transitions. When you finish this, I'd like you to. Removes the need to figure out what comes next, which is something the ADHD brain finds genuinely difficult. Structure gives them freedom. When the routine handles the navigation, they can focus on the learning. Tip number 3, build in movement. This is not a nice to have. For students with ADHD, movement actively improves focus. So research suggests that the average brain can sustain intense focused attention for just 15 to 20 minutes at a time. For a student with ADHD, that window can be significantly shorter. Allow fidget tools. Doodling does not mean a student isn't listening. Build micro movement into activities. All students benefit from this. If a student is moving and still engaged with the work, the movement is not the problem. What movement or fidget strategies have worked in your classroom? Share them below. We've got fidget pens. Tip number 4, specific, targeted, positive feedback. Not just well done, be specific and direct praise towards the things that are genuinely difficult for them. Well done for getting started on that task, because starting is hard. You've used the time really well today, because time management is hard. Specific praise lands completely differently. It says, I see what you're working against. I notice your effort. You're not invisible. Tip number 5, invest in the relationship. We all work harder for people who we feel genuinely see us. ADHD students who often carry a significant load of negative experience are especially responsive to a teacher who takes real time with them. Ask about their weekend, remember their football team. It costs you 30 seconds. For them, it can shift the entire dynamic of how they experience your lesson. It gives them a sense of worth, and when students feel like they matter to you, they will make more of an effort. They'll want to please you, and that relationship is one of the most powerful tools in your classroom. What is the smallest thing that changed your relationship with a student who is struggling? We'd love to hear it. The most important thing to take away before we wrap up, let me leave you with the single most important shift. ADHD is not about unwillingness, it's about regulation. So instead of thinking, they just won't try, ask yourself, what is getting in the way of this student learning and how can I help? That shift from judgment to curiosity is where the real change begins. And your ability to see the student and not the behaviour will have a genuine and lasting impact on how they experience school. Step by step, you will see a difference in how they engage, in how they react, and in how they see themselves. You will have helped make that difference, and that matters more than you know. Let us know one thing that you will do differently in your classroom this week after watching this. Thank you for watching Excell Connect, and if you found this useful, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe so you never miss one of our guides. We'll see you in the next one.